Okay, so before I get into today's episode, I'm going to read you a list. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple in 1985. Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx, was turned down from multiple manufacturers and retailers before she went on to build this incredible billion-dollar business, which she exited a few years ago. Henry Ford's first 2 car companies failed. Eminem went through years and years of rejection before he eventually caught the attention of Dr. Dre. Mark Cuban experienced multiple business failures before going on to become a billionaire. Apple became close to bankruptcy in 1990, and Amazon barely survived bankruptcy in 2001. Monet only achieved recognition for his painting after his death. Harry Potter was rejected by 12 publishers before J.K. Rowling finally got a book deal for that incredible book. And Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Why am I telling you all of these incredibly enormous failures from incredibly famous people and companies? Well, today's episode of Branded is brought to you by your one and only host, Amelia Sordell. We have no guest today, but I wanted to talk to you about failure. I want to talk to you about fucking up and all the mistakes that you've been dreading making and why actually failure is part of success, not the opposite to it. So let's get into the episode. So, why do I want to talk about failure? Well, I think my business, Klowt, and also my professional career has been exclusively built on going from failure to failure without a lack of enthusiasm. And I say that in jest, but actually I really do mean it. You know, failure has been the absolute, epicenter of everything I've ever achieved. It is going from fuck up to fuck up and learning from those fuck ups in order to build a bridge or a skyscraper or whatever you want to call it of life to get to that next level. I was talking to someone recently actually, and they are an entrepreneur, a very successful one. And they told me that they've had 50 businesses throughout the course of their life so far, and only 5 of them have worked out. But in the 45 that didn't work out, they learned so much stuff and just learn how to build successful businesses, which is why those 5 have worked out. And so one of the reasons why I think I talk about failure so much, aside from it being something we can universally relate to, and I can dig into why that's so important in personal branding at another time, but I think failure is one of the things that stops all of us from achieving our potential. We're also fucking worried about what someone's going to think about us if we don't do well, that we just fail to try. And that ultimately is the only failure you can ever have in life, is not trying and not trying to push ahead and achieve, things that you want to achieve because you're scared of looking stupid or you're scared that it's not going to work out. So I'm going to start the beginning of this episode talking about my failures and what they've taught me, because I'm hoping by sharing some of my greatest fuck ups in life that it's going to make you feel a little bit better about yours, but also a little bit less scared to take risks in the future. I think we think that all of our scares, all of our problems and all of our issues and all of the things that we stay up at night worrying about are unique to us, but actually we're all the fucking same. We all are scared of the same thing. We're all scared of looking stupid. I, struggled through my whole life being worried about what the people are going to think about me, and that really held me back for so long. And I'm hoping by sharing some of my biggest failures that you're going to feel a little bit better about yours. Okay, so we're going to start off. Failure numero uno is I actually got fired from my first job. So let's just talk about that as a concept. We all spend, and I think put so much weight on our value as people based on the job that we have or the money that we earn or how good we do at work. And nobody wants to do a bad job, right? No one wants to come into work and do a bad job or be told that they could be doing better or, get positive or get negative criticism about the work that they're doing. And albeit I was 16 when I got fired from this job, but I did get fired. And I got fired because, to be honest, I wasn't doing a good enough job. I wasn't good enough to be there. I didn't care enough, which is my first issue. That was maybe my first fuck up, was actually I didn't care enough about this company, but I just wanted to get paid. I was 16 years old. I just got my national insurance, which for Americans listening, it's like a social security number. And I was legally able to work at the age of 16. And so I went and worked in this beauty salon. that had sunbeds in it. And your girly back then loved a sunbed. Now I would rather die. I wear Fat 50 every single day. The girls I was with this weekend were laughing at me because I had to wear a helmet to do these water activities, and I had a hat on under my helmet, and I looked like such an idiot. I looked like a helmet because I had this hat on, but it's because I like putting my face in the sun because, you know, no one likes wrinkles. So we've come a long way since we were 16 and we loved a sunbed. But I worked in a tanning salon and I was basically their Saturday girl. I used to open up the shop. I used to have welcome customers, clean down the beds, you know, vacuum up the floor, shut up the shop, etc., etc. It was probably the easiest job anyone could have done. And back then, I think I got paid like £6 an hour. Like, it was pretty good for a first job. Like, I know there's probably people listening to this now who are maybe on their second or third job and thinking, £6 an hour, how did you work for £6 an hour? But that was the going rate back then, okay? Like, you were lucky if you got 5. I think the minimum wage when I first started working was like £4 something. It's like crazy. You can't even buy a coffee for that now. It's like nuts. But it's what we did. And so I worked in this tanning salon for £6 an hour, and I was a Saturday girl, and my job was really easy. The problem was, because I was kind of cocky and didn't really give a shit about the company, nor the job that I was doing, I used to shut the shop like 15 minutes early so that I could do a sunbed without having to stay longer in the shop. And because I'm not that smart, I failed to realize that they have CCTV in the shop, so the owners could see that I was shutting up the shop 15 minutes early every single week. But the second thing is, like, when you logged your tanning in the system, you could see what time that person started a sunbed, right? So for example, if you bought a credit of like 20 sunbeds, it would be logged in the system of when you took those sunbeds. And so we got given credit because we worked there for like free to basically, so we were just super tanned all the time to encourage people to obviously use the sunbeds. They wanted to walk in as these beautiful young girls, just like super tanned. And I go super tan. And I stupidly didn't even think that they would be able to see that I was logging like my tanning beds 15 minutes before I was meant to be finishing work. Anyway, so they never mentioned it to me. They just like monitored it, I guess, for like 4 months. I didn't do it for the first like couple of months because I obviously didn't have the balls. But as time went on, I hated it more and more and more. I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to do it. Why not? Anyway, I got caught doing it basically every weekend for like 6 weeks. And I remember my boss calling me just being like, yeah, we have to let you go because, you know, like you keep clocking off early. And I remember at the time being so mad because I used to sell a lot of credits. Like, I was a really good salesperson. So if someone came in and they wanted to buy credits for a sunbed, I would always upsell them. I'd get them the best cream. I'd be like, no, don't get the sunbed, get this one because it makes you so much more tanned. And like, I'd always upsell. So I was actually making a lot of money for the company, and I really enjoyed making money. I still do. Like, and it's not because of the cash, it's just generally, it's like a game. Like, how much more can I get out of this game? How much more credits can I get out of this game? How much more cash can I get out of this person? And it was always a game for me, so it was really fun. So I always used to smash through targets of like sales, but I just wasn't very good at like the other shit, like, you know, clocking in on time, clocking out on time. And I remember her calling me being like, yeah, we're going to let you go because you've been clocking off like 15-20 minutes early every single week. And to start with, I remember being like fucking furious. I was like, how dare you? I've made you so much money. None of the other girls are making money like I am. Like, I'm such a good salesperson. Like, you're lost, bitches. And I moved on, right? I think by that point I was already doing other Saturday jobs and stuff as well. Because again, like as a kid, like I was just so desperate to move out of my parents' house that I just wanted to work as much as humanly possible. So I then worked in like a clothes shop, which was just down the road from the tanning salon, and actually did a lot better there because, you know, it was sales basically. But yeah, I remember being like really defensive and kind of pissed off that they let me go for doing such a shit job. But actually on reflection, I'm really happy that they did let me go, because when you think you're really good at something, and we've all been there, right? We've all been in situations before where we thought we had something nailed, or we thought we were doing a really good job at something and someone humbled us. I think life has an amazing way of doing that. And so this first failure of being fired, which for a lot of people is kind of anxiety inducing, it really helped me kind of reflect on like the stuff that I could improve on. And so I never carried that attitude into any of my other jobs. You know, I had real pride. I still do. Everything I do, I take a huge amount of pride in, whether it's like designing something on Canva, or, you know, meeting someone or helping someone out. I always try and go above and beyond, because I think it's really important for people's like perception of your character, but also your perception of your character, most importantly, that you try your best at everything. And I don't think I would have learnt that lesson if I hadn't done that shitty job and been fired from it. And the kind of wider lesson in that as well is, I think when you do receive negative criticism, and like, you know, to the credit of the company I was working for, like they fired me because I was a shit employee. But what they could have done is they could have sat me down and given me a performance review and gone, hey, like you've been clocking out like 2 times this week. What the fuck? Like sort your shit out. And I probably would have sorted it out. And I think there's some people that are probably listening to this who've had performance reviews recently and they maybe didn't go to plan, or they've had some negative criticism, or they've had some feedback from their employer or their manager or their colleagues on something, and you're just fucking stressed about it. And the thing that I would say to you is you can always get another job, right? Like, I think we go through life so stressed about potential outcomes and negative outcomes of things that we forget that actually no one died. Like, me being fired from my first job was not the end of the world. I just went and got another job. And, you know, I've had to let people go in my business. You know, I've worked in other companies where people were let go. Like, you know, most of us will get let go at some point in our lives, whether that be through poor performance or layoffs or redundancy or whatever. Like, most of us will experience that in some way. And going back to what I was saying right at the beginning of starting this kind of failure number 1 is we tie so much of our identity to our workplace sometimes and to our work. Then when we do get rejected in that way, it can quite often make us feel like terrible. And, you know, redundancy and layoffs and being fired is no mean feat for a lot of people. Like, it can really put a huge amount of strain and stress on you as a person, both emotionally, financially, and physically. But what I want to say to you is it's not the end of the world. Like, there are hundreds of thousands of other jobs. There are hundreds of thousands of other companies who want people just like you. And I think if you accept that if something doesn't work out, it's not necessarily because you completely fucked up. I mean, I was obviously not a great employee, clocking off early, but it wasn't because I completely fucked up. There's a mutual kind of accountability that needs to be taken there. And actually, rejection is often redirection. You know, if I had not been fired from that first job, I probably wouldn't have landed my internships because I wouldn't have had time to work in them. And if I hadn't landed that first internship at Marks and Spencer's, I probably wouldn't have discovered how much I love PR. And then I probably wouldn't have founded Klowt, and we probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to each other today. So don't fear the worst case happening. Accept what the worst case is and kind of rationalize it. You know, if the worst case right now is you being fired, what would you do? Well, you'd find another job and you'd be fine. So that's kind of failure number 1 is, you know, everything's going to be okay, but even if it's not, you will still be okay. Like, you're not going to die. You'll be fine. Okay. So that's failure number 1. Failure number 2 is an interesting one, right? So some of you might know I had a business, or I've had loads of businesses. I'm such a cookie cutter entrepreneur, but I had a business that I founded when I was 21 called Either Side, and it was a clothing brand, and we sold into 15 boutiques internationally. You know, ASOS wanted to stock us. We were doing pretty well, actually. And we launched around the same time as House of CB did, which back then was called Celeb Boutique. So any of the girlies listening to this podcast that wear House of CB, shout out, because I love that brand so much. And Connor Walker, who founded it, is fucking exceptional. Like, if you want to see what a good business looks like, go and look at Connor Walker. Like, she is a badass. Anyway, I founded a business similar time as her with very similar business model, very similar clothing, like very similar demographic. We were both kind of steadily growing at the same time. And you know, she was going from strength to strength. I was going from strength to strength, and I was getting featured in the Daily Mail. I had like wags wearing my stuff. I had loads of celebrities wearing my stuff. You know, I was papped all the time, and I was just doing really well. Like, it was great. And, you know, going back to what I said about failure number 1 and what I learned from that, as soon as I got to a point where I was like, I fucking made it. Like, this is easy. And we were making easy money. It's when everything failed. And the problem with that business was, because I was 21, 22 at the time, and I was a managing director of a company, I had so much of my identity tied up. And this is, you'll notice the running theme with all of these points I'm giving you, right? It's identity. When we tie our identity to things, outcomes, people, and they don't work out, we feel like a piece of shit, right? And that's ultimately why we feel failure, is because we don't want to feel like shit. We don't want to feel terrible. And so we actively avoid, you know, pushing the boat out with these things because we don't want to mess up, because we don't want to feel bad. But if you remove your identity from the outcome, thing, or person, it doesn't matter whether it works out or not, because it's just another notch in your story arc. It's just another plot twist in the movie of your life. And I think that's a really important message there. Like stop seeking your identity to be whole in your work or in people, in your husbands and your wives and your boyfriends, your girlfriends, like your partners. Stop seeking your wholeness in things and outcomes. Like we always do this thing where we go, oh, when I can just do this, then I can do that. Like, oh, when I've just made enough money, then I'll go on holiday. Or when I've just built the business to this point, then I can do that. Or when I've just. We all make excuses for ourselves not to reach our potential because we're so scared of what the outcome's going to be if we just do that thing without having to do something first. But I digress. So we're building this business and then year 2 failed. And at the time, as I said, because I was so young, I tied so much of my identity to that business. When it failed, well, let me tell you, it felt like a death. Like I felt like someone had died and I was grieving. And honestly, I cried like every day. It was horrendous. I lived on a diet of like cigarettes, alcohol, and coffee. I was so skinny. I couldn't eat anything. I couldn't drink anything but vodka. And it really was like someone died. And I grieved that business for months. Like I'd put my blood, sweat, and fucking tears into this thing, and it didn't work out. And the thing is, I think we get told so much, like follow your passion. Find what your passion is and follow it, and you will never work a day in your life, and it'll be so easy. That is the most bullshit advice I've ever heard in my life. I love my job right now so much, and like 70% of the time it's a fucking hard job, right? And that's not because I don't love it. It's not because I'm passionate about it. It's because working is hard sometimes, and you can't expect every day to be like exceptional and rosy, even when you choose what you do. And I appreciate there's a privilege that some people don't have, you know? Or lots of us have and some people don't. So I think kind of coming back to my point around your identity, like I genuinely felt like someone had died. And so that failure like rocked my world. And it was, you know, a perfect storm of the business failed. And then my boyfriend at the time and I ended up breaking up at the same time. And I had to move out of my house because I couldn't afford to live there. I had to sell my car because I couldn't afford to run it. And I had to move back in with my parents, which for someone who was incredibly independent and moved out when she was 18, didn't even live in halls at university. I lived in my own apartment that I paid for. You know, all of those things, like moving back in with your parents was a big deal. Like I genuinely thought my life was over. Like I was 22 and I was like, I'm done. My life was 23, or nearly 23. My life is done, right? Finished. How I fucked up now. Who's going to want to hire me? And that took a long time to recover from. And if I'm perfectly honest with all of you, it took me about 10 years to recover from that failure. Like it knocked my confidence so hard that I didn't want to start another business again, even though I would argue that like at my core, I'm an entrepreneur. Personal branding isn't something that I started by accident. Like I like the game of building things, and I have a million ideas. 99% of them are absolute garbage, but some of them are really good, and I'm really good at the ideas, right? And so Klowt is my business right now, and it will be for a very long time. But there are other businesses that I am involved in, and there will be other businesses in the future that I'm involved in. And, you know, it's part of my identity. But at the time, or probably shouldn't be part of my identity, it's part of who I am. But at the time, like I genuinely thought that my rest of my life was done. Like who's going to want to hire a failed entrepreneur? And it took me so long to recover from that I never took another chance on a business for 10 years. 10 years it took me to recover from that. And I just think about all the lost opportunities I had in that time because I was so scared of what might happen. Like, oh, what would happen if I failed again? Everyone's going to think I'm stupid. Everyone's going to think I'm dumb. Everyone's going to think I can't do this. The reality is everyone can think those things, but does it fucking matter? No, because it's not their life. Like, I think I get so much abuse even now. Like, you know, I looked at some of the comments I got on TikTok recently and some of the YouTube comments I get all the time. YouTube is savage, by the way. Tell me about that. Side note, pause, not okay. But I was looking at some of the YouTube videos that I get, YouTube comments I get on some of my videos recently, and some of the comments are just like savage. They're like, "Yeah, you've never run a business before. Show me what your bank balance is. Like you're fucking shit." Da da da. All these things, and that at the time would have like sent me over the edge. Like even like 5 years ago, that would have sent me over the edge, and now I'm just like, so what if your business doesn't work out? Like you look after your team, you make sure they're taken care of, you ensure that everyone's bills are covered and whatever, but like you'll be fine. you'll be fine, because I know what it's like for a business to shut down. I know what it's like to liquidate stock. I know what it's like to dissolve a business because it's literally fucked and it failed. And if that's the worst thing that can happen, then why wouldn't you take that risk? Why wouldn't you take the opportunity to build something? Because even if you only get 3 years in and it fucks up, then great. You learn how to build a business in 3 years and you can learn how to evolve that. So next time it will last 5. The time after that will be 7, 10, 15, 20, to a point where, going back to what I said right at the beginning, you have 50 businesses across your lifetime. 5 of them will be fucking bangers. And that is something that I want everyone to learn from my failure. Like, it's much cheaper to learn from my mistakes than it is to learn from your own. Don't be afraid of things failing, because it will be fine. And even if it's not fine, you will be fine. It's always fine. I had that business fucked up 10 years ago and like time sapped so many months of my life because I was mourning it and just moping around being a silly sausage, scared about having to go back into the workforce because I thought everyone would think I was an idiot. If I'd got straight back on the horse again and was like, cool, that didn't work out, what can we learn from that, and done a proper post-mortem, Klowt would probably be 15 years old right now and would be a £25 million business. So all that wasted time of me not feeling confident enough because it knocked my confidence, I could have reinvested back into myself and been a better version of who I am today. So that's failure number 2. Failure number 3. Now, this is a personal one, guys. We're going to get a bit pursy. Was my marriage. My marriage ended in divorce. I know, taboo. Oh my God, we're on a podcast talking about business and personal branding and she mentioned divorce. Where are we going with this? I don't think it's a secret that I am divorced. And I am divorced now. My papers came through in May. Fucking exciting. My ex-husband and I went for a champagne to celebrate. Which I don't know how he's going to feel about me mentioning that. But yeah, like, we were so happy to be divorced from each other that we went and celebrated with champagne. And I think that is a testament to his character, but also a testament to mine, that we, you know, went through this horrendous situation of like fighting for 3 years to now we're in a place where we actually really enjoy each other's company and we're great co-parents and our children are much happier and more confident and just more wholesome because of it. So that's a lesson to anyone that's going through a breakup and has children involved, or even a divorce and doesn't have children involved. Just be the bigger person. Like, it's so much easier for everyone involved if you just kind of like lump it and just accept that it's a shit situation and just try and be empathetic to the other person, because regardless of which side of the fence you sit on, everyone going through that kind of stuff, it's just not nice. And even if someone's done something wrong or whatever, like, it's not nice for anyone. And one of you has to be the bigger person, because if you're just constantly fighting with each other, the only people that lose are the kids. And then if you don't have children, you both lose. And the only one that really wins are the lawyers. Trust me, I've seen my fucking bill and it is not worth the ag of 3 years of fighting over stuff. So yeah, don't do what I did at the beginning. Do what I did at the end. Do what I say, not what I do. And just make it as easy for everyone as possible. Because I think when you're fighting over dumb shit like assets and names and whatever, it's like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Like, you are accountable. And I say this all the time, right? If you want a happy life, you have to be 100% accountable for it. You have to be 100% okay with, accepting everything. And it might not be your fault. Like, it doesn't have to be your fault, and it might not be your fault. Someone might have done something horrendous to you, but it's still your responsibility, and you have to take accountability for your life and making your life as good as it can possibly be. So if someone's been a fucking asshole, you can either be a miserable person to that person and make them suffer, which is going to make you suffer, or cut them out of your life, or be the bigger person and sort it out. Trust me when I tell you, it makes everyone's life so much easier, and it's going to make, more importantly, your life easier. So yeah, divorce is no fun, but we're in a good spot now. But that is a pretty massive failure, right? Like, when we get married, I was a death do you part kind of gal. You know, I was like, death, not divorce, death do we part. And it didn't work out that way. We met when we were really young and we had 2 beautiful children, and I have absolutely no regrets because, you know, it's part of my story arc. It's part of my movie, and I'm the main character. Obvs, you should be too. And you're the producer, and you're the director, and you're the writer, and it's part of my movie, and that's okay. But and maybe that's a wider point we can make about failure moving forward, is like everything is part of your movie. Everything is a twist and a plot twist and a story. It's an anecdote you can tell at a dinner party when you're 95, which is how I live my life, by the way. I have a bag over there, which is, anyone that likes handbags will know what that bag is. You probably can't see it in shot, but it's a very nice handbag that I bought myself a few years ago. And I have a chain on it that says, do it for the plot. And I really mean that. Sarah Carrigan, if you don't follow her, she's the most amazing confidence queen on Instagram, Sarah fucking Carrigan. She always says, do it for the plot. And I kind of add to that and say, do it for the plot, not the ending, because this is all going to end the same way, guys. We all die. Like, hate to break it to you. Well, no one's getting out of this alive. So you may as well just accept all of the plot twists with open arms and a big smile on your fucking face and just figure it out. Because what is the point of being miserable about stuff like getting a breakup or a divorce or whatever when you know that you've got another 70 odd years left to live? What are you going to let it do? Like, encompass your whole life? Come on, grow up. So, divorce. That sucked, right? And I think I think there's a huge amount of taboo around divorce, because people want to save face, right? They want the perfect picket fence relationship, family dynamic, because that is the dream that we're sold, particularly as women. And I'm sure men are too, but I can't relate because, I'm not a man. So maybe from your perspective as well, you can relate. But particularly as a woman growing up, it's like what I idolized, right? I was like, I want to have a baby by 25. I want to be married. I want to be engaged. I want a like double fronted house in London with a picket fence and a, whatever, Range Rover. God, he loves cars. And that was like the ideal. That's what I want for my life. And then I got those things, car included. And I realized very fast that actually it wasn't what I wanted for my life. And the way that I defined success in a relationship as a grown-up, as in a woman in her 30s now, early 30s, is so different to how I defined it when I was 21 or 22 or 26 or 28. And so for me, I think so many of us settle into things, whether that be a relationship or a job or a business or even friendships, and they don't ever question it because they go, okay, well, this is my lot now, and this is kind of what I asked for, and now I've got it. And I kind of feel like there's something more, but like, I'm happy, but like there's, and I see that in so many people. I see that itch. I see that lacklusterness in their eyes, and I'm not encouraging anyone to do anything drastic, right? Like, divorce is a fucking disgusting thing to experience. Like, there was a time where I cried every single day, not because I was sad about the marriage breakup, but because it was so draining. The marriage breakup was the best thing that's ever happened to me, not because that person wasn't amazing. He's amazing. He's an unbelievable father. And I'm so lucky to have him as a co-parent and so lucky to have him as a friend. But as a husband and wife situation, like, we were just not it. But the actual divorce itself was so draining, and anyone that's been through that or has been through something like similar will know how exhausting it is. Like, every day was just exhausting. It was hard to get out of bed. I was trying to grow the business at the same time. I was trying to parent my kids. That was trying to and it was just too much. It was too much. But I would still take that now a million times over than feeling like I missed out on life, than feeling like there was maybe more and I didn't experience it. And this is where I come back to failure. People look at my divorce and they'll call it a failed marriage. I've even written in my notes, right? Notable failures, failed marriage. But I don't think that marriage was a failure. Why is that marriage a failure? I got 2 beautiful children out of it and an amazing co-parent. And I think this is the thing that keeps a lot of people trapped in relationships and in situations that they just don't want to be in, is because they don't want it to be a failed relationship, right? We don't want to say that we've got a divorce. We don't want to say that we broke up with the man that proposed to us, or the woman that we proposed to, or the person that we said we would spend the rest of our life with. We don't want to say that, because when we say that, we have to accept that we made the wrong decision, and nobody likes taking accountability for making the wrong decision. Because we're all perfect, right? None of us make mistakes ever. We're all perfect. When you start to recognize that actually you're allowed to change your mind when new information becomes available, your life becomes significantly more amazing. Your lust for life becomes more amazing. Your experience of life becomes more dynamic and It's like, the only way I can describe this is it's like being under a sheet of ice in a lake. Bear with me. I'm going somewhere with this analogy. It's like being under a sheet of ice in a frozen lake, and you're holding the ice from underneath, and you're kind of moving yourself along with your hands, and you're just looking for a hole, right? All of us are looking for a hole, and you can see that hole over there, and you don't know whether if you swim over there that the hole is going to exist and you're going to be able to breathe again, or whether you should just stay where you are. And that's what I felt like. And I'm so glad I popped out of that hole and kind of figured it out, because now my life is fucking amazing, and his life is fucking amazing, and my kids' lives are fucking amazing, and we're all thriving. But it's only because I was willing to look like a failure, and I was only because I was willing to look like a moron, and all my friends judge me for having a failed marriage, and all my family to judge me for having a failed marriage, that I now am able to experience life at a completely different level than I've ever experienced it before. And some of you will be listening to this and you'll understand the analogy I just gave. You'll understand that suffocation that I'm talking about. And there is always more. There is more in your relationship too. There is more. Like, if you want more from life, go out and fucking take it. Don't be afraid of looking stupid. If you want to ask someone out, ask them out. If they say no, they said no. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? At least now you know. And I think that is an attitude that I've taken probably from my failed business and from my failed marriage, and maybe even from that, being fired from my first job, is fuck it. Do it for the plot. Like, what is the worst that's going to happen? Someone says no, or it doesn't work out, or people think you're an idiot. Like, so what? Who cares? You literally have on average about 85 years in your life to make the most of it. And that's not actually a huge amount of time. That's not a huge amount of time. So if you're not proactively making decisions that are going to enrich your life constantly, you're going to feel like you settled, whether that be a relationship or a job or a situation or a house or like any of those things. If you don't push the boat out all the time, your life is not going to feel rich. It's going to feel poor, actually. It's going to feel poor. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't enrich your life on a daily basis by pushing the boat out and being unafraid and unapologetic about challenging yourself and challenging what you believe is going to work out or not work out, and just seeing whether it does, you're going to die and have a lot of regrets. And to me, that is the biggest fucking failure that you can have in your entire life. So those are some of my failures. Tell me some of yours, and maybe I will read them out in the next podcast. The next thing I wanted to do as part of this kind of exercise of talking about failure is I wanted to run through some stories that I've come across recently, which I think are really good to share. Because I think, as I said right at the beginning, I think every one of us feels like our problems are unique. Like, we all think that, us thinking about separating or thinking about quitting or thinking about getting fired or thinking about all the things that go wrong in our businesses and our careers and our family life, whatever, we all think that those things are unique, but they're not. That we all have the same problems. We all think we're so different. We all have the same fucking problems. And if you have the confidence to talk about those things, like hopefully I am now, you put light on them and you allow space for other people to go, oh, okay, I'm not that different, actually. Loads of people are going through that. And when you type in things like failure into Reddit or Quora or even Twitter, the things that come up over and over and over and over and over again are the same fucking problems, but they're just framed in a different way. We have this saying in Australia, it says it's the same shit, but it's a different toilet, right? It's the same turd in a different toilet. And that's the truth of humanity, right? We all have the same fucking problems, but they all just look slightly different. Or they're communicated in a slightly different way. Our toilets look slightly different. And reading some of these stories, I kind of want to give you guys a voice and a channel to listen. If you can't resonate with some of my stories, I'm sure you can, because we all have our own version. We all have our own version of that. But if you can listen to some of these stories and take something from it and kind of go, wow, well, it's not just me, I think that'll be helpful for all of us. So I'm going to read out a couple of stories and then, hopefully give some stoic advice on them. Not that I'm like an advice person, but I feel like I really do accept failure as part of being successful, right? If you have a fuck it attitude, amazing things happen. I have this theory that no matter what I do in my life, no matter with this business, no matter what decisions I make, it's going to work out. I have a theory that with my dating life, no matter what I do, it's going to work out. I genuinely believe that. And as a result, I always land on my feet, always. And I think it's not because it's like some, rose tinted glasses manifestation bullshit. Although I do believe in manifestation, but that's only because you can look at it every day and whatever. We'll get into that in another episode. But it's because I have an attitude of like, it's going to work out. And so I take more risks. And when you take more risks, things tend to work out, right? So let's read some of these things and then we can take it from there. And some of them are quite deep. And by the way, I haven't read these stories first. So, bear with me. Okay, so this is from the small business Reddit. So anyone that's on Reddit, you can go and have a look at this story. And by the way, just to be honest, I have picked these out from Reddit. Like, I think a lot of people on podcasts like, oh, we've had people send in their stories. I will never lie to you guys. I will tell you exactly where I got it from. Sometimes we do have people send in. Like, so we had a few questions that we read out a couple of weeks ago, which were actually from Instagram stories that we got. And maybe I should go on my other phone right now and post about being on Instagram. Post on being the podcast and see if you guys can send in some of your stories. I should have really thought about that beforehand, but I think that's a really good idea. So let's do that right now. So where do I go after a failed business? I'm on the verge of closing my business down after 5 years. Business has been my identity for my entire adult life. Sound familiar? Now I'm in my 30s, jaded and no mood to start another business. I don't know if I can stomach a low paid job and live paycheck to paycheck again. How do I overcome a failed business and an urge for a new career? Okay, wow. First of all, I can totally relate to this. I think people think that when they start a business, it's going to feel like they've never worked a day in their life, right? Or they don't need to work another day in their life because you're doing your passion, right? You're starting a business and thing that you love to do and that you're really good at. And so therefore it's going to be easy. It doesn't matter how hard you're going to have to work. It's going to feel easy because you're passionate about it, right? What happens when you start a business is you start a business doing something that you love and that you're really good at. And as a business grows, you end up running a business not doing the thing that you love and are good at. And I've found that in my business, right? I'm trying to do a full 180 right now where we've built out this incredible team internally to take on the business kind of running stuff so that I can go back to doing what I'm really good at, which is personal branding, because I've ended up just running a business instead of doing personal branding. And that's not why I started a business. I want to do personal branding. And so I'm in a very similar situation right now. And so I can really relate to this person feeling like they're jaded because and they're 4 years in too, right? I'm on the verge of closing or 5 years. I'm on the verge of closing my business down after 5 years, right? It's been my identity for my entire adult life. That is legit me. That is legit every single person that's probably started a business or been a freelancer at any capacity whatsoever. It becomes your entire fucking identity. But also you can sometimes feel like you're done. Like, people go through this. It doesn't matter whether you're employed or not. Everyone goes through that thing of like, I'm not learning anything anymore and this is really boring and I don't want to do this anymore. We've all been there. I've been there 100% in this company. Like, I've been running this company for 4 years now and I've had loads of times where I've been like, I'm not developing here. Like, what am I doing? And I think there's two things, right? First and foremost, do you actually want to shut your business down or are you just bored, right? Because they're two very, very different things. The second thing is, you said you don't want to take a low paid job, right? You can't stomach a low paid job again. But how do you overcome a failed business and urge for a new career? To me, they're two entirely different things. You're saying that you want a new career. Is it because you're bored or is it because you you feel like you're stuck in a rut, or because it's genuinely your business has failed, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, why do you think that a failed business is going to stop you from getting hired in a well-paid job? I never forget when my first business failed and I had to dissolve everything. I remember going on Google and typing in, what are the jobs that you can do with no experience that pay you the most amount of money? As I said, we like cash, right? And I'm okay to admit that. Anyone that goes, oh no, I don't need to be paid, they're a liar. We all need money. We have fucking mortgages to pay. And let's be honest, the Maldives is there. But how do you come back from a failed business? You can still get paid a fuck ton of money. Like, the thing is, failures are the building blocks of lessons, right? They are how you learn to be better. And actually, I would much rather hire someone who had a failed business and had it going in profit for 5 years than someone who had no experience in building a business whatsoever, because I know that person is going to be able to add so much business acumen to my business that they were going to be an unbelievable value add, and I'd probably pay them a lot of money to come in and do it. I know loads of consultants who've had 50, 60, 70, 80 failed businesses before, and they get paid a fuck ton of money to go in and help businesses scale because they know what doesn't work. And oftentimes it's the easiest thing to do is to know what doesn't work, to work out what does. And so I don't think the two are, to be honest, the same fucking point. Either you're bored of your business and you need to figure out how to develop, right? Which is a separate podcast altogether. Or you need to accept that your business didn't work out, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean that you are in some way less than a person. And this is why I don't want people to tie their fucking identity to their work, right? I don't want you to tie your identity to your business or anything, because when it doesn't work out, you feel like you're not good enough. Why should you have to accept a shit job because you had a failed business? You ran your own business for 5 fucking years. That's worth a lot of money. That's longer than me. It's longer than me, right? Don't be afraid to fuck up. And I actually think if you're not fucking up, you're not trying hard enough. You're not innovating hard enough. Failure should always be an option. It's not the opposite of success. It's part of it. And the quicker you can get over this idea that failure is the opposite of success and just accept that it's part of the route to it, it becomes a lot easier to stumble from failure to failure without a lack of enthusiasm, like I do every single day. I don't know if that's advice or rather a pep talk. I want to bring up this person that I met recently, and I'm not going to give the situation or the scenario because I don't want them to feel like embarrassed or whatever, because I think it's a really important story to read or to read out or to tell you rather. This isn't from Reddit or anything. This is a real thing that happened to me. I met this amazing person recently, about 2 weeks ago, and we just loosely met, like paths crossed, whatever. And then I saw them again later that day. And so we sat down and we started talking, and they burst out crying. And, the situation was, it was her and I in a room, and we were by ourselves for some time. And then other people came and joined us who we also didn't know later on. And this person started crying. And I said, what's wrong? Like, is everything okay? And basically what happened is it transpired that she'd recently separated from her partner a few months ago, and today, the day that I'm talking about, was his birthday. And some context that's important is, they share a family together. This person hadn't seen their child for some time, and she was just struggling, she was going through it and, whatever. And the reason why she was crying was, the birthday thing made her feel like a failure because she had this beautiful child that wasn't going to be able to spend her father's birthday with her. And so she felt like a failure as a woman because she didn't manage to make the relationship with her child's dad work. And the advice I gave her, and the advice that I want to also share with you, because hopefully it will help someone through something. And this is advice that I wished that I had gotten when I was going through a divorce as well and going through breakups and stuff, is you can't control how people behave. If something isn't working, you need to accept that and understand that just because it didn't work doesn't mean it wasn't a success. You got a beautiful child out of that relationship. To me, that is a win. This child is stunning. I mean, personally, and just a joy. That is a fucking win. And just because you're not with the parent of that child doesn't mean that child isn't going to grow up to be loved and adored and confident and sweet and intelligent and all the things. And I think we put a huge amount of pressure on ourselves as parents to stay in situations that aren't right because we don't want our kids to come from a broken home. And this is the advice that I want to share with you, and that I had shared with her, is it's much better for kids to come from a broken home than to live in one. And I think once you can wrap your head around the fact that it's okay if things don't work out, as long as you surround yourself and surround your little family with love and confidence and discipline, sure, and support, that those kids will grow up to be the best fucking versions of themselves that they could possibly be. And it doesn't matter about the other stuff, because ultimately kids just need to feel loved and supported, and you can't control other people's behavior. And also, uber ick if someone doesn't want to be involved in their child's life. Like, ew, no, we don't hang around with people like that, right? So if anyone's going through that right now, and I've met many people over the last couple of months who are going through a very similar situation, just know, the way that someone else behaves is rarely anything to do with you. It's often to do with themselves. So number one. So if someone's being nasty to you, it's not about you, it's about them. If someone doesn't want to be involved in your kid's life, that's about you. It's not about them. I appreciate there is nuances there around you having to support that child and making sure that that child's okay. But like, it's not about you or the kid. It's about that person, right? And number three is, it's better for children to come from a broken home than live in one. No one wants to grow up in an environment that is unstable, that is angry and aggressive, and or none of those things. It could just be fucking cold and loveless. No child should have to grow up watching their parents hate each other or not even be affectionate, right? You should grow up with good parenting role models. And I actually think myself and my ex-husband are great parenting models. We decided we didn't love each other anymore, and so we're not together. And he's gone off, and now he's got his own thing going on, and I've gone off and got my own thing going on, and we're a great family unit. We're just not married. That's a great role model. What a great setup for our kids to be able to go, you know what? Mum and dad had us. They decided they didn't want to be together anymore. So they stopped being together, but they're still great parents, and they still get on, and they still love us, and they still support us. So I know when I'm older that if it doesn't work out, I have options. What a fucking great example to set your children, that failure is fine. When things don't work out, you're still fine, right? So yeah, if anyone's going through it right now, my heart is out with you, because I know how fucking hard it is, but it will be fine. You will be fine. So yeah, that's a message to that amazing person that I met, and to anyone that's going through something similar. Next failure. Oh, okay. So these are questions. I'm going to go through those in a sec. We've got one more story about failure, and then I'm going to go into some questions, because people have like spun me some questions about failing that I think might be quite interesting. Okay, this is an interesting one. Why do so many people tell you that your business is most likely going to fail and that you should stay in your employment where you are? I understand starting a business is a risk, but I believe that if you do your homework and you put the time in, you'll have a very high chance of succeeding. The people who say to stick in your job are most likely people that are employed by someone else and haven't ever tried self-employment. Are they jealous, scared, or don't want to see someone else achieving their dreams? It's really disheartening to hear on it as someone who's just started their own business. Okay. I had this so much when I first started Klowt. I had it from my parents, right? I had it from my parents. I had it from my ex. I had it from my friends of like, oh, risky to start a business, particularly in the middle of a pandemic when you've got a safe job, risky. The thing is, people often say you can't when they mean I can't. Let me say that again. People often say you can't do something when they mean I can't do something. People don't like seeing other people that they care about take risks, because they think if it fails, that person is going to be fucked. And that is a projection of their insecurities onto you. It's got nothing to do with you. No one who loves you is saying don't do that because they don't want you to win. They're saying don't do that because they're worried that it's not going to work out, and then you're going to be sad, and that's going to make them sad, right? Not everyone is a hater. Not everyone is a naysayer. There are lots of those that do exist, trust me. But not everyone is that way. And I think we have this like really cut dry attitude towards people that don't quote unquote support us, and like going like, oh, like they're a hater, they're jealous. No, like some people just genuinely don't want you to fuck up because they love you and they don't want to see you sad. And that's okay, right? But also don't accept their insecurities as like part of your journey. You can listen to people's feedback, and you can listen to people's lack of support and accept that, and then still go and do what the fuck you want to do anyway. If you're waiting for other people to support, to start a business or quit a job or quit a relationship or start a relationship, you're going to be waiting forever. You need to work on your dime, people, not on other people's, okay? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, a lot of people will tell you that businesses fail because they do. 90% of startups fail. 90%. And that's in the first 2 years. In the next 4 years after that, it's like another fucking 40% of the ones that survive still fail. So statistically, you're going to fail if you start a business. Like, it's not like, oh, work really hard, apply yourself, do lots of work and you succeed. No, you probably will still fail. But the difference is the people that accept the failure as part of success are the ones that succeed, because as I said earlier, you start 50 businesses, 45 of them will fail, 5 of them will be fucking amazing, right? Don't accept other people's insecurities and lack of confidence in their own abilities stop you from achieving your dreams, okay? It's got nothing to do with them not wanting to support you. It's got nothing to do with them being jealous. It's just the fact that they don't think it's going to work and they don't want you to be sad. Or they're just a hater. It's one of the two. Next. Anyone else feel like a failure all the time? My first full year in business, I've been doing it since 2023, but made the leap. I've been doing it part-time since 2023, but made the leap into full-time in March. I'm currently doing fairly well. Made 200 grand last year and 100 grand profit before taxes. That's fucking unreal. So by all accounts, I should have felt good about it since I don't know many people who've even got that far. But I constantly feel like a failure. I hit 20 grand per month almost immediately after going full time, and then just got stuck there. Somewhat seasonal, so slow months of 10 to 15K. Nothing I do seems to move the needle past 20 though a month. Spending thousands on business coaches and education to try and break through the ceiling and have very little to show for it so far. I left a prestigious job on paper that paid me super well, and I feel like I'll lose it every single month that I don't meet my goal. I'm barely scraping by on my minimum required salary. I've got 2 kids, so 100 grand a year isn't really enough to maintain. By the way, it sounds like this person has a lot of other debt as well from their student loans, and it's an American story, okay? So Brits, $100,000, not pounds. And dipping into savings during slower months when I can't even make that. Does anyone else feel this way? How do you get past it? Beyond just making money, because that would be obviously make me a lot happier. Okay. There's a couple of things and this is going to be a slight biz coach, but also like the failure thing too. I think a lot of people put unrealistic expectations on what they can achieve on themselves within a short period of time. And I certainly did that, right? When you hit 20K a month and you go, well, why aren't I hitting 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70? It might be because they're unrealistic expectations. Like if your business isn't scalable to that point, you're never going to hit it, right? So it doesn't matter how much money you spend on business coaches or leadership stuff or learning. If you can't scale what you've got past 20K, you're never going to scale it past 20K, right? You need to work out how to scale it first. So that might be the first thing. The second thing is feeling, and the most important part I want to take out of that story is the feeling like a failure all the time. Let me tell you something. Every single person I have met who I believe to be successful on paper, financially, but also in life, they all have imposter syndrome. Every single one of them. Every single person I've met, it's almost like the more successful and the more intelligent you are, the more you feel like an imposter. And we all feel like a failure from time to time. It's what makes us human, actually. And I have this theory that when you lean into imposter syndrome, when you lean into feeling like you're not good enough at something, it actually helps keep you competitive because it identifies in your brain what you're not good at and what you can improve on, and therefore how you can then take the next step forward in your life. It's like I was saying earlier, you need to know it doesn't work in order to work out what works. So if whatever you're doing right now isn't working, great. You can now scrape that off the list of things that you want to try, and you can try the whole new list of things, and maybe one of those things will work. And that is kind of imposter syndrome. That's what this person's referring to, right? I feel like a failure all the time. Okay, cool. So what have you tried? Those things didn't work. Scrape them off. Try the new things. And I think when you have this constant momentum of like trial, fail, try, fail, try, fail. I didn't even say that right. Can you tell I'm recovering from a 2-day hangover? Try, fail, try, fail, try, fail. When you do that over and over again and you move really fast, that's why people say fail fast, right? Fail fast, learn fast, move on. When you do that all the time, you start stacking up all of these ideas, failed ideas, but also positive ideas, and you start to learn. And that's ultimately where you get confident in things and you can move on to the next thing to feel like you're an imposter in. So I got really good at personal branding. I was like, cool, tick that off the list. Let's go do something else. Start a podcast. Started off shit. And now we're doing okay. So yeah, speaking of which, if you enjoy this podcast, please share it with other people. Please leave us a review. I really want to grow this podcast. Like, it's honestly my passion project right now. I'm obsessed with it. I love interviewing all these incredible people. I love speaking to these amazing guests. I love doing these solo ones too, of me just rambling for an hour and speaking to you. It's like the only time we get to speak, right? Maybe I should do that more often. But if you enjoy this, please share this with a friend, with a mum, with a brother, with a colleague, and ask them to leave us a review. And please, please, please subscribe, because the more subscribers we get and the more listens we get and the more reviews we get, the better the podcast becomes and the more I can make of them. Because my dream really is to turn this into a media company. Like, I would love to do this podcasting thing full time. I love it. I love interviewing people. And I think I do an okay job of it. That's why you guys keep listening and the numbers keep climbing every month. So thank you so much. But the more of that we get, the more we can do. And yeah, I just thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. So yeah, going back to imposter syndrome, I felt like an imposter when I first started doing this podcast. And now I can sit in front of 2 cameras and chat shit for an hour by myself, no problem. So, you know, horses courses. Failure is not a bad thing, guys. You should embrace it. Okay, so last few bits before I get booted out of my studio is I'm going to read 2 questions that I've got from you guys on Instagram about failure that I've been asked, right? When in your career did you realize that failing was the way to best move forward? That's a really good question. I don't think there was a specific point where I learned that failure was a good thing. I think it's because I failed so many times, but I've learned so much from those failures that I've started to embrace it as a concept. So, for example, let me give you a real life example. I have a theory, as I said earlier, that like everything's going to work out for me. So it doesn't matter like whether that date I went on was shit, because my life's going to work out for me. It doesn't matter whether that pitch I did last week, I fumbled my words, because my life is going to work out for me. And I only think I've come to that conclusion because I've had so much failure in my life, and every single time I've been fine. Like, let me tell you, I've had months I couldn't pay my mortgage. I've had months that I couldn't pay my rent. I've had maxed out credit cards. I've had bills up to my fucking eyeballs. I've had to take loans out to pay debts, right? Take debt out to pay debt. I've been in that situation. I've been in that horrendous situation time and time again. And I've been fine, guys. No one died. I'm still here, thriving, I might add. And I think we all put so much pressure on ourselves because we think that if all these bad things happen, we can't come back from them. Let me tell you, you can come back from a maxed out credit card. You can come back from a missed mortgage payment. You can come back from jail, right? I mean, depending on what you went in for. You understand what I'm saying, though? We can all come back from our missteps. And that is part of the human experience, is going from thing to thing and just figuring it out as we go along. This life doesn't come with any fucking manuals, right? But if you get to the end of it and you have regrets, you fucked up big time. And that is the only failure that you should really accept. It's like if you're 92 years old and you look back and you think, damn, I wish I'd done more things or I tried more things, then you fucked up big time. Big time. So failure should be embraced as part of success. And it wasn't one point in my career or in my life that I realized that failure was a good thing. It's been like something that I have been working on, should we say, as a side project for 33 years that I've been on this earth. So those are all my stories. And I'm going to wrap this up because I'm getting looks from my producer through the window. Because I don't let people sit in here when I do these solo podcasts, because it makes me feel so fucking uncomfortable watching people stare at me. And I get that too, by the way. Everyone looks at me and thinks that I'm really confident on camera. No, I'm confident on camera by myself, guys. I don't like people looking at me. So I do these solo podcasts by myself, and my producer Ollie is looking through the window like, hey, can you wrap this fucking up, please? Because we've got 3 minutes left. So I want to close this, first of all, by saying thank you for listening. I think it's such a fucking honor that I get to talk to you guys once a week and have these incredible conversations with people, but also share hopefully some of my little pearls of wisdom and philosophy on life with you. But the second thing is, and the final most important thing of this whole episode being about failure, is you need to understand that nothing in life comes free. And I mean that financially, physically, emotionally. Nothing in life comes for free. If you want an amazing relationship, it's going to fucking hurt for you to get there. If you want an amazing career, it's going to fucking cost you to get there. If you want an amazing house, an amazing holiday setup, an amazing car, you're going to have to invest a lot of fucking your time to get the money that you need to pay for that, right? Everything has a cost. Nothing is free. And failure is the same thing. If you want to build an incredible business, you want an amazing life, you want an incredible relationship, you want amazing friends, you got to kiss some fucking frogs. That's how this works. Ribbit, baby. You need to pay the piper if you want to have an amazing life. And failures are the best ways to pay that piper. So whatever it is that you're working on, whatever it is that you want to do, but you're scared of it not working out, let me leave you with this. Do it. Do it for the plot. Do it for the story arc of your life. You are the main character, producer, star, director, writer of this thing. Write that into your journey. Like, what is the worst that can happen? You start that business, doesn't work out, fine, you'll go and get another job. You go on that date with that person, doesn't work out, fine, you'll go on another one. You fall in love, you move in with that person, fine, doesn't work out, you can do it again. Like, life is not a fucking linear journey. It is ups and downs and cross and wiggles and squiggles and all over the place. And a big part of that journey and the enjoyment of your life is fucking up. It's fucking up, guys. Also, the best stories start with a fuck up. And so I think the more of those you can collect in your life, the better your dinner party stories will be when you're 95. And also the more naughty you'll be as a grandparent. And I think the naughtier grandparents are always the fun ones. So yeah, failure is an option, guys. Embrace it. It's part of life and it's part of your human experience. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Branded by Amelia Sordell. As I said, please share this with your friends, colleagues, grandmas, and just don't waste your life worrying about things that may or may not happen. Because if they happen, you'll be fine. But if they don't happen, you'll fucking be amazing. Love you lots like jelly tots. See you next week.